Hey folks, this is Teddy Burriss of Burriss Consulting. Me and my good buddy, Mr. Randy Wooden. That's him over there. Thanks for joining us today for lunch conversations with Randy and Teddy. And our special guest today is Mark Owens. We'll introduce you to him in a little bit. We're grateful that you're here. We're grateful we hit a new number. We're at 320,000 people who have registered. And those who know the show, they know what 320,000 means. But thank you for everybody who's registered for the show. And thank you for all of you who show up. Hey, Randy, would you do me a huge favor?
Yeah, what's that?
Introduce yourself to these people.
I'll do it. And also, while I am thinking about that, if you are watching us, please chat in the chat box where you're watching from. And we have had all across the country and internationally as well. So again,
Randy, just an observation. Jeff Young just acknowledged that I'm here.
Well, how about that? Now, Jeff's in Ohio. Is that the Jeff
he
Young in Ohio?
He just said hello to the goat.
He did. Well, Randy Wooden with Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina, here based in Winston-Salem. We're about a 31 county operation. We're big. We have a lot of programs to include the Goodwill's Professional Center. I am the director of that. And as well, you might imagine, we help professionals that are in a job search, whether maybe they're currently unemployed and looking, or a lot of times you get burned out. Your time there is kind of dwindling and you think maybe it's time to look around. So regardless, we're happy to help. Our services are free. We work by appointment. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. We're happy to help. And again, there's no cost at all. And as part of some of the services that we offer, we do group events. And back in March of last year, when COVID sent us all home, Teddy and I got together and said, why don't we have a little fun and start a show and talk about job hunting? And so one thing led to another, and he hasn't gotten tired of me yet, but the day is young. And here we are almost a year into it. We have a special guest today. And for those that aren't aware, Mark Owens is with Greater Winston-Salem. And if you're wondering, what's that? It used to be the Chamber of Commerce here in Winston-Salem. So he's here to talk about a lot of the initiatives going on, how COVID has changed what we do and how we do it. He'll also explain how the name Greater Winston-Salem came up, and also about his journey to this job coming from South Carolina. So let me turn things over to Mark. Unless, Teddy, you have something that you wanted to share about the chat and so forth.
Yeah, can I do the housekeeping, buddy?
Absolutely.
Look, this is the way we do this, folks. If you don't do it this way, then I'll have to work harder. Ask us any question you want to ask, but do it in the chat and then focus it on the panelists. And if your question is relevant, then I'll raise it up for either Randy or Mark to answer. Also, a bunch of you have showed up and told us where you are, but I don't know where all of you are. So tell us where you are. It's important that we find out where you are. So use the chat and we'll make this happen. Randy, back to you, buddy.
Good deal. Well, I guess, Mark, you know yourself better than I do. So why don't you give the folks a kind of a quick bio on you and what brought you here to Winston?
Yeah, thank you, Randy. Thanks, Teddy. And special hello to all those watching. I really appreciate spending lunchtime together. I just scarfed down my local lunch, supporting the porch today. So I ate a little early, so I'll be ready to go for today. But excited to be a part of this. Again, my name is Mark Owens, President and CEO of Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. Moved here from the upstate of South Carolina, Greer, South Carolina in 2017. My wife, Melody, and I moved with a then 3-month-old. So he's now 3 years old. His name's Luke. Born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina, made my way up the state and was an intern at a Chamber of Commerce in college. And then that kind of sparked this dream and this passion for building businesses and building community at the same time. And that has led us to here in Winston-Salem. Thrilled to be here, really focused on growing the businesses that we have and helping. When we talk about growing businesses, that's growing jobs. So I think your audience is either seeking jobs or always looking for better opportunities or just continuing to stay sharp. A lot of great things going on here. Excited to talk about today.
Good deal. Always like to know the why behind what you do. You mentioned you were an intern. That kind of got the spark going. Any more of the why behind that? What led you to this ultimately as a career?
Yeah, Randy, that's a great question. I have a pretty specific story about that. The why, I mean, it really kind of got sparked as an intern, and then I went and did financial advising. And then I really realized I like to help people. and got to help a florist. So as a floral shop, a mom and daughter working out of their home. We were putting on some events when I got started in the chamber career in Greer as a entry-level programs director. And I was in charge of putting on these monthly luncheons and got this one lunch together and got to know this florist and made sure to sit her next to the purchasing director of BMW, who was in the audience. By the time that event ended, that one person, that floral working out of their home, had a contract with the largest employer in the upstate of South Carolina. And that mother and daughter business was able to have a brick and mortar and hire 10 people and really grow. And that's when that spark became a big fire. And I saw, wow, this connecting people, the opportunity to help businesses grow. Businesses growing produce jobs, and jobs can impact families and really generations. So when we talk about job growth, it's personal to me. And I think that's what gets me out of bed, fired up, ready to go every morning.
Yeah, I know you mentioned your passion for workforce development. Hey, by the way, if you have a question for Mark or a comment, go ahead and put those in the chat box, and Teddy's going to keep an eye on that in case you have something that you'd like to ask. If it's appropriate and we have the time, we're going to certainly look to work that in. All right, so let's talk. What is Greater Winston-Salem? I mean, isn't that the Chamber of Commerce? I mean, why the change? What all went behind the scenes to bring that about?
Yeah, great question. And I'll just echo, please fire away your questions. This is more impactful for us to answer your questions and sometimes when we talk, but Greater Winston-Salem Inc. builds off of the tradition of 134 years of the Winston-Salem Chamber of Commerce. So about 2 years ago, that started this conversation. We had the Chamber of Commerce as well as Winston-Salem Business Inc. And the Chamber did local small business support, talent development, talent recruitment, retention, expansion of existing businesses, networking, traditional kind of chamber activities. Winston-Salem Business Inc. did recruiting of new companies to the community. A trend across the country, especially in the Southeast, is looking to have some consolidation for a singular voice, better use of resources, messaging to be, one point of contact, one front door to the community. So our boards got together and started and announced in December of last year, 2 years ago now, I guess, that this consolidation would take place. We've had great success as a community doing it differently, but now we think we can amplify that success as one organization. So we became Greater Winston-Salem Inc. in April of 2020. A funny thing was, again, pre-COVID, it was decided April 1st would be the day. So we officially launched on April Fool's Day of 2020, which is pretty wild date in the history books.
And the town was silent too, because everybody was locked down at that point. Pretty much, a lot of folks were sent home.
Absolutely. And talking, office, employment, professional services, we've had people on our team. We have 14 people that haven't met each other yet, that have joined us since this and have met virtually. So pretty interesting dynamic in the workplace right now. And Greater Winston-Salem Inc. Why the name? We did a national survey of companies that look at recruiting, site selectors that look at helping businesses choose locations. Out of the 1,100 organizations that are part of this International Economic Development Commission, only 2 were named Chamber of Commerce. And so that stood out, but they were small towns. And so sometimes when people heard the word Chamber of Commerce in that survey, they thought of a small community. And so Greater Winston-Salem Inc., we represent more than Winston-Salem. We represent all of Forsyth County. So the greater allows us to talk about being a little bit broader than just Winston-Salem. And Inc. is the business term, right? That we do anything that relates to business as an association. So that's the name that we came up with. Still do a lot of the traditional activities. Still need businesses and individuals involved in helping tell our story of a community. And that's something really important.
Hey, Mark, Randy, Mark asked a question, which I think is absolutely appropriate to where we are now. Mark wants to know, how can he get involved with Greater Winston-Salem Inc.?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I will say it's different right now than normal because of COVID. We're all virtual. So it's a little harder on a personal level to get on a board or a committee. But we definitely are looking for individuals that are passionate and interested in talking about business in our community. We have a couple that are still meeting virtually, a construction industry council that meets virtually. We have an under 40 group that's great. We're going to start an advanced manufacturing group We have 2 referral groups. We call them leads groups that meet, that can share leads and interactions with each other. So the best way to get involved is shoot me an email and I'll connect you with the right person on our team. My email is markowens@winstonsalem.com. And it looks like Teddy may have thrown our website in the chat there too. We'd love to connect, love to get people involved. So thank you for that.
Good deal. All right. So, and Jeff's got a question that we'll get to here in a moment. And this, we can't avoid the elephant in the room, which is COVID and how that's impacted us on so many levels. Let's first tackle the broad question of the state of the economy, and then we'll kind of break it down a little bit with COVID and some other, variables. But the state of the economy, where are we now? Where are we?
Yeah, I think we're a little better than we were this time, March of last year, maybe not February of last year, but in terms of where we are right now, there's hope, there's optimism, there's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. We've weathered a lot of that storm. I think there's people that are looking forward to not only the vaccine rollout and what that could do for our recharging of the economy, but also the warm weather that we saw showed some lower number of COVID cases in the warmer weather last year. But Randy and Teddy, I got to start with it. It's been the hardest thing anybody in our business community has probably ever faced. What's unique about this, and nobody here as an audience hasn't been affected. Everybody across the country has been affected by COVID in one way or the other, whether it's just being at home or their jobs or their companies are being affected in some way. So I will say that Winston-Salem has been hit hard, but we've probably been able to withstand that and rebound a little bit faster than some other places. Some of our major metros across the country are definitely hit harder. We're seeing people move here from the Northeast, from some larger cities that are wanting to get into a community that's a little bit smaller, a little bit safer. We have 2 amazing healthcare systems. That's good for our citizens. But from the business perspective, we've lost some businesses. There's no way around that. But we've also seen some come back. So if we've had a restaurant close, we've seen a new restaurant pop in and start up after it. We've seen businesses be incredibly resilient. It has expedited the online platform for many of our companies, whether that's a grocery store. Now everybody does drive-through or delivery grocery opportunities, right? Or it's a retail that said, I've got to get my point of sale updated and do curbside. Or one of our great startups, Swipe By, that has turned your favorite restaurant into a drive-up. So people, we look at it as crisis can also create innovation. And I think our community is going to rebound faster because of that. But it has impacted, our numbers. But we have gotten our unemployment numbers back down a little bit. There are some opportunities there. It just may not always be as robust opportunities as there were pre-COVID.
I know there have been some write-ups in some various journals and magazines around the country. So here's a chance to brag, Mark. So let's take that opportunity, all right?
Let's do it.
So let's do that. So COVID has changed things, but Winston still seems to do really, really well on a national level. So let's fill us in on some of these accolades that we've achieved here recently.
Yeah, thank you. I think some of the things that are interesting is COVID has had challenges, but what I think it has done as well is accentuate our strengths as a community. We're a great mid-sized city. We have a mid-sized city that's connecting. You can be anywhere within 20 minutes. You can be across our region. There's 1.4 million people in our region. And so companies that were always looking at these major cities or publications looking at these major cities, you can't open a journal or a New York Times or something without seeing this rise in mid-sized city or this flee of major metros. And so it's shown and shine a light on Winston-Salem and some of the positive things. We were just ranked tied with Charlotte and Austin, Texas for the best place to start a business. One of the top for small business growth in the country. We're just ranked number 15th in the country for best city for newly remote workers. So we have people moving here, and maybe some of your audience are looking at job opportunities that are 100% remote. We've got that internet connectivity, that cost of living, those great amenities in our community to be on the national scene for being a place to want to live and work wherever you want to live. So we also got some retirement accolades. So we have this blend of being the best place to start a business.
Teddy's old, by the way.
I knew that was coming. I saw that coming all the way down the street.
Teddy, turn on your hearing aid. All right. He needs to hear this because Teddy is so close to retirement. He can taste it. So
And I'm glad I'm in Winston-Salem, Mark.
Well, thank you, Teddy. I threw that softball right to Randy to knock it out of the park.
there you go.
But yeah, I do think it's been, it definitely has been interesting to see our size become an advantage. A lot of times we hear about, well, Charlotte and Raleigh all the time. Well, Charlotte and Raleigh are behemoths. I mean, when you compare to Charlotte and Raleigh, they're two of the fastest growing cities in the country, much less our state. But we have a unique opportunity to not be either one of those and that be a positive thing for us. And I think that's where our community focus has been. And we're nimble. We can make things happen a little bit faster. And we're starting to see an uptick in interest and opportunities because of it.
I know, Teddy, there's a question in there. What a quick question for Mark. And then if you could tackle the one in the
I'll get that one.
Yep. You talk about some of the advantages, Mark, of being the size that we are, cost of living, robust internet and so forth. As we grow, because we're getting this influx, what are some challenges that we face, whether it's infrastructure on the roads, that kind of a thing? What are some of the hurdles we might encounter?
Yeah, great question. Housing is one. The housing market, that mid-size house, that 190,000 to 250,000 market is really tight. We need some more opportunities for housing. We're seeing some great density and apartment opportunities, but those home buyers, we need some more options, affordable options there. So you're going to see an uptick in new homes being built soon. That's been a big push from the city. We've got one of the best roadways now in Salem Parkway coming through the heart. That's more of an advantage now. I think one of the things we're going to face is a challenge. We've got some buildings to fill downtown, but we're also not geographically a really large county. So when we look, a lot of our job growth is in the industrial distribution side at the moment. We don't have a ton of land identified for that. So in the next couple of years, we're going to need to look at some new opportunities there to be able to continue to grow. But our roadway system, we have a great division engineer in Pat Ivy at DOT and some great folks in that department. We see that as an advantage, but some of the secondary roads got some love because Salem Parkway was shut down for so long. They're in pretty good shape. But we've got all the water we could ever need, sewer infrastructure. We're really ripe for growth. It's just, we got to infill some of the existing buildings before we get to some of that new construction piece.
Yeah.
I like the Jeff Young, who's a buddy of ours out of Ohio, throughout this stat. I just want to share quickly that it's absolutely real. 85% of the business in the U.S. is small business. So talk about having to share some love. That's where we need to be sharing 85% of our love is how I look at that. So Jeff, thanks for that point. Hey, Mark, I guarantee you that John threw out this question I know you've had to address before. And I remember, years and years, the same questions come up. How do we deal with real regionalism? How do we break down the silos? How do we get, what are you guys doing to bring what is Winston-Salem, Greater Winston-Salem Inc. doing to pull in Greensboro, to pull in High Point, to pull in Burlington and Davie? And what are we doing as collectively?
Yeah, great question. And just to echo the small business, that's vital. I mean, that's the heartbeat of any community is your small business. And we also know between 80 and 90% of all new jobs come from existing business. So it's fun to talk about recruiting new ones, but our businesses that are already here, that are invested, that are working to keep the lights on, those are the ones creating jobs and employing the major part of our community. So great point on that. Regionalism has been something that I'm incredibly passionate about. I think we've come a long way in our last 3 years, at least on that regional effort. We have the Piedmont Triad Partnership, which is great to pull in business leaders across the region. And we've also identified a common brand called the Carolina Core. And the Carolina Core really highlights Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point, Alamance, Burlington. And it talks about mega sites for major projects, but also small businesses, and takes our message to the world, really, and mostly the country, as a region. So when we talk about it, you look at a lot of stats, people look at the MSAs. Well, years ago, our MSAs were split. So our statistical areas that census tracks, Greensboro and High Point became an MSA, and Winston-Salem's a separate one. But if you use the CSA, the combined statistical area, then we are one of the largest in the state with that 1.4 million. And we can punch out of our weight class a little bit more when we look at a region. So that's a really important thing for us to talk regionalism. What I can tell this group is that we meet regularly. We have bi-monthly meetings. We have, for the first time, one common marketing contract with a consulting firm that has economic development marketing, where we share that. We share pitches, share stories. We have calls. We talk regularly. The chamber president, Brent Christensen in Greensboro, great friend. We shop each other's small businesses. We did a fun swap where I gave him some Winston stuff and he gave me some Greensboro things, and really passionate about that. And one of the things talking about small business right now more than ever, we're doing buy local, but we're also doing a Triad Together challenge. And we're asking people to shop local and use the hashtag Triad Together to show that regional effort. So yes, we compete sometimes, but more importantly, we want a project to land next door more than we want that project to go to Alabama or Mississippi or Florida or anywhere else. So we're building on that. With the average drive time being 22 minutes, you can see that we interact in our different communities a lot.
You also,
Randy, let's say when I moved down to to Winston-Salem in 1997, I had a Yankee who's turned rebel. I had no problem going up and down I-40 between Greensboro and Winston every day. And over time, I've seen more and more people don't have a problem doing that either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I remember when I moved here in 2000, and that was, you mean the jobs in Greensboro? I don't want to go to Greensboro, or they're in Greens. I can't come to Winston. I might get lost. Yeah, attracting businesses, we have the infrastructure, we've got a lot of the internet, we've got some good things in place, the size, cost of living, safety, that kind of thing. What about the education and the skills, or what are we doing to ensure that our workers are upskilled to really be able to help companies that might want to stay here or move here?
Yeah, that's a huge question. I mean, we always talk about the biggest asset of any company is its people, and Randy, we try to refer to you a lot at Goodwill and the great work you do there. We've been really excited to see the growth of Forsyth Technical College and what Dr. Spriggs and her team are doing. A lot of times when there's recessions or pandemics and different things, that's when our community colleges sometimes are needed the most for that upskilling or reskilling opportunities. So I think that's been really important. We've seen customized training being available through the state and Forsyth Tech for companies to kind of retrain their employees when needed. We've seen actually enrollment stay pretty level there. We've seen people trying to go back to school and reskill and find other opportunities with Winston-Salem State or newly, formed Carolina University or wherever that may be. But I think we also look at what we focus on a lot is the school system as well. We really are focused down to create this pipeline and getting students in the 9th and 10th grade interested in work-based learning opportunities and creating a pipeline into the work system. But it's crucial right now. I think people, you guys know the term soft skills. I call them critical skills because I think
I'm with you.
More important than that. And that critical skills, I think, are more critical now than ever. When you're working remote, how you handle yourself on a Zoom call, the reliability factor, the trust has to be at another level when you're not in the office with people and you're working for those opportunities. So we're trying to do some seminars. We're trying to highlight other people that are talking that up and finding new innovative ways to connect with individuals, because connecting means something different now than it did before. And, I think that makes it a little bit more challenging, Randy, to talk about those skills. I think, yes, we're seeing the technical skills, those hard skills needing to stay sharp, but more importantly, we're seeing those critical skills needing to be kind of refocused on and rethought through in a virtual environment.
Yeah. I like the fact that I see Greater Winston-Salem Inc. working even at the Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools, the K through 12 space. Because that's where it starts. You got to start as early as you can to show people that we're here to help, we're here to serve, and we want to grow collectively.
Also, Goodwill, we partner with Crosby Scholars, and that's another opportunity to help focus students toward life beyond high school and to encourage them to continue their education so they can have good careers. And so that's something that I know Goodwill's excited about and has been for years. So a lot of stuff going on there. Interestingly enough, you talk about how to handle yourself on a Zoom call and so forth. Coming up next month. Now, Teddy, let me go to my paper calendar on the wall because
You may bring it up on my computer, Randy.
I'm old school here. Just a second. Hang on. March 3rd, Cindy Martin, who is actually in the audience today. She will be on.
Here?
Yeah, she's here somewhere.
Okay.
But Cindy's here. And her topic will be that very same topic about etiquette, protocol, dealing with Zoom and dealing with any of, yeah, there you go, Teddy. Straight.
Can she teach me how to do a cat video to put a cat on? I don't know how to do that, Randy.
I don't know, but when you learn it, I want to see it. And so that'll be good. But yeah, we all learn as we go a lot of times. And I got to tell you, Mark, one of the things that, and I've shared this with Teddy too, is that through this whole pandemic, what have we learned? What have we learned? And I guess I'll throw that to you, but I'm going to buy a moment or two for you to think about what the heck you're going to say here. But with things I've learned patience. I've learned empathy. You see these people dying. You see healthcare workers at wit's end trying to figure this stuff out. And from a business standpoint, not just Goodwill, but everybody's had to pivot like that to suddenly, how do we conduct business? How do we remain relevant when I can't walk up and shake your hand? I can't sit down next to you and get that deal with BMW. I don't have that capability today. And for how many times you've heard somebody say, "You're on mute. Turn on your camera." But we have developed more patience, I guess, and maybe more understanding that, maybe we didn't have before. So what are some things, maybe positive things you've seen come out of this whole COVID thing, Mark, that you can point to maybe from an observation of humanity standpoint, if nothing else?
No, those are great points. I love the Zoom bingo cards. If you haven't gotten a Zoom bingo card, they make some meetings kind of fun to have as well. We've done it as a staff a few times. So add that one to just spice up your day next time you got a big call coming up. I think what's been really tough is that, a lot of times we just need interaction, and for individuals in sales environments and, getting your message across, either that's your personal brand when you're hunting for an employment opportunity or your business, that brand that you're trying to get out there, you do that in interactions, whether that is a personal interaction or a digital interaction, whatever that is. And to be able to have to, for a while there, be mostly only digital in terms of, while Zoom was getting the kinks worked out and people were figuring out what platforms to use, that personal interaction was hard. And sometimes when you're out of sight, you're out of mind, and people fall into their routines of the businesses they are around their home or wherever their traditional patterns are. Especially for us, a lot of things we do are in-person networking and trying to connect people. So having to rethink that plan, same thing with Goodwill and many other places as well. So I do think we've learned patience. I think we have, one of my favorite things is we've gone from, oh gosh, the toddler in the background or the dog is really interrupting the meeting, to it's kind of fun to see people's personal lives a little bit more and see and understand each other. So now in our staff meetings, we've got kids sitting in laps, we've got animals running across the screen. It kind of brings you a little bit closer together in a weird way. So I think from a humanity standpoint, I don't think we're ever going to take for granted being able to see people in person and going to a baseball game or going to your kids' sporting events and seeing it in person instead of live streaming from the parking lot, whatever those kind of things are. I think we'll appreciate that. I'd be interested in your comments though. Is the handshake gone forever? I don't know if the handshake's coming back. I'm a believer in, if I'm going to do a deal or hire somebody, I'm still going to shake a hand because I think that tells a lot about somebody. But just meeting some new people, I think that's going to be an interesting thing to monitor.
Yeah, that'd be a good question to put to our 33,000 people in here. What's the one human engagement that you miss the most because of COVID? Just drop a one worder. That'd be great to see. So we'll pay attention, Randy. Go back to you.
Well, we're halfway through the show, Teddy.
Hey, so let me do the halfway show. Thank you very much. So, hey, everybody, this is Teddy Burriss, my good friend, Randy Wooden. Our guest today is Mark Owens of Greater Winston-Salem Incorporated, or Greater Winston-Salem Inc. And the conversation is about, workforce development, economic development. How is Winston-Salem navigating the COVID world that we're in, and how are we looking to come out on the other side, when and whatever that looks like. So, Mark, thanks for joining us. Randy, back to you.
Yeah, and we've kind of hopscotched around here, Mark. There's some topics I know you wanted to talk about, and we've kind of interwoven them a little bit. So let's just ensure that if there's more to add to the topic, let me bring it up, and then more to add perhaps could be regarding COVID. You talked about office space,
Right.
and I wonder, I go into Goodwill one day a week. That's all they can stand of me is one. No, I go in one day a week, and I don't meet people in person. I don't meet clients. They Zoom or phone call. And that's just me in my work. But for so many people, they're home either all the time or most of the time. And so what does that mean for office space? At some point, I got to think, gee, do we really renew a lease if I'm a small business or a medium size? So what impact have you seen in terms of office space and the appetite for new office buildings to be built, if any?
Yeah, it's a complex question because there's been two things. One that I kind of expected, and maybe you and the others are expecting that answer to be, and then one kind of unexpected trend that I've seen as well. Yeah. So yes, the hybrid model of working remote and working in the office, obviously it's been mostly remote. I know that some bigger companies in our community are going to go to a hybrid model full time once things open back up. And there will be percentages of remote. People have the opportunity to come in a couple days a week, and you're going to go to more touchdown spaces than personal offices that you're in every day kind of setup. That's definitely the case.
Let me ask you, what you said, touchdown spaces. What is that?
Yeah. So kind of think about an office without your personal stuff like Teddy's got on his wall. Think of it as kind of a neutral site. So maybe on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, that spot is yours, but you share that office with somebody on Monday, Fridays.
Sure, buddy. I'll share, buddy.
Yeah, there you go. So you got some opportunities, not even in co-working spaces, but in organizations, corporate organizations and companies. The other thing is, I think we're starting to see that laptop with the docking station to where you're kind of mobile. You work from home, you bring it in, and there's 12 different spots in the office. Which one are you going to use on your day in? And you're going to go check in at that spot and work in that, what we call touchdown space. So I think that's going to be changing that environment. But what also I've seen, you mentioned about building new office space. I don't envision new office space being built for a while. I think that is going to be a reuse of existing space and a reimagination and recreation of existing space. But I will tell you, we are getting significant interest from larger cities. And this is the one that I wasn't expecting. And these are companies, this is a little breaking news for you, a little bit of behind the scenes for your audience. Companies out of the Northeast can come to our community and have more office space square footage than they have there for less money. And so we're actually seeing a pretty big increase in companies looking to move their business operations office here so that they can spread out more. They still value the in-person, but to go from 10,000 square feet to 25,000 square feet and pay less or the same that they were paying for that smaller spot in the Northeast, we have a major advantage there. So I do think office is going to be rethought of in the long run. I think people are going to gravitate back to in office because that hallway talk, that conversation to pop down is so valuable. But I also think this kind of something I've been watching is these other companies are come in and want some more space to spread out. That's going to be an advantage for us.
Yeah. Also, I think as a worker, if I can work remotely, do I want to work in the middle of Boston or New York City? Or would I rather stay here? And again, I can buy more house, more land than I can there.
Careful, buddy. Careful, buddy.
Hey, I grew up in Rhode Island. I have a question, and Mark, I hadn't thrown this your way earlier. Is there, from a compensation standpoint, if I had to physically show up for work and the company was based in Boston, and I had to go there, then Boston would pay the Boston market rate for my work performed there. But since I'm here in Winston and I'm performing that same work remotely in what is a lower cost of living metro area, do you see any kind of change here in terms of how companies structure their pay and how all that works out? Because I'm doing the same work Teddy does in Boston. I feel like I ought to make the same money he is.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think the short answer is I'm not sure yet. I think it's still kind of being seen. What we're seeing are individuals currently that worked in DC, worked in New York. We've had quite a few from the Chicago area as well move here, keep their jobs in those cities that they're in, but work remotely. And so if you think about it, they're still being paid a big city metro wage, but living in a lower cost of living and quite honestly a higher value area for living in Winston-Salem. So they're getting the best of both worlds, living here, but also maintaining that rate of compensation. I do think that's going to level out eventually as people start adding new folks. I think they may be looking at the wages in the areas they live in versus the area of the headquarter or the office location. I think that could level out a little bit. But right now, it's mostly people moving and keeping their jobs working remote. And I think as time goes and those turnover there, I think that will even out a little bit more to being paid the rate, maybe that the rate of the state, if you will, maybe not based off of each city. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch to see what that looks like.
Looking at the small business, we talked about that earlier, and that's where most of the growth typically is within small business. And so I get it that big companies are going to farm things out and so forth. But think about business incubators. Think about the flywheels of the world and places where small entrepreneurs can have space. Are you seeing that there's a demand for that type of office, that size of office space, or has that diminished also?
Oh, it's increased. I mean, people looking at Flywheel, Winston Starts, Center for Creative Economy, some others here in our community, and I know the same across the region. People are wanting to get out of their house. So it may not be to go start a business. It may just be, I need to, I can't work in the garage anymore. I got to have an office space to go into. And so we're seeing those co-working spaces, as we call them, be more popular. We're seeing some traditional office spaces start to do some construction on certain floors in their building to create that opportunity for that co-working space. And we're really aggressive, and we're seeing companies move here for that entrepreneurial ecosystem. We had one just move here not long ago that wanted to move because of the furniture industry. So here's a good regional kind of play. They wanted to be around High Point, around Hickory, around Winston and Greensboro, chose Winston to live, came from the Bay Area. So now they have their rent of their office. They have a 2-bedroom apartment, and were able to buy a car for what they could afford their 1-bedroom apartment in San Francisco. And so we look at that and we call it a run rate or a runway for a startup. I mean, that company doubled their lifespan without adding a dollar to their balance sheet by just looking at their cost and saying, yes, venture capital is strong in the Bay Area, but in a virtual world, it doesn't matter where I am as much. And so it's going to be interesting to see that, but that co-working space, that smaller size area to go, we're definitely seeing an increase in that. And I think that'll be a trend that will stay for a while.
Gotcha. Hey, here's one, and we've kind of danced around this too, and we've touched on it. But again, a lot of our audience happens to be job hunters, and if you're not one today, if you live long enough, you will be one. Right. So, what advice, if you had to give some advice for job hunters right now, what are maybe a couple, 3 tips or encouragement you might want to offer?
Yeah, I think first off, encouraging words to say, I think we're getting closer to the economy coming back a little stronger. I know it's been tough. Stay with it, because we need every talented person in our region to have an opportunity. And we want you to have that opportunity here in the Carolina Core and in the Triad, and of course, Winston-Salem. Interviews are different. We now, in Randy's services, call them and ask for help if you need it. And I would just say the Zoom interview is much harder to do than an in-person interview. It's different. So I think what I would say is find ways to differentiate yourself. The art of the handwritten note really sets people apart. And I think that when you can't get to meet in person, you have a Zoom and then somebody mails you a thank you note, that really stands out. And I think those opportunities to try to connect in a personal way when you have a screen dividing you. Find what that looks like. That is you. I think somebody wrote in the chat a second ago about being authentic and being you. And I think that really shines through more in today's world. But it's harder to get across when you don't get to sit and see body language and see what's on somebody's wall, to learn that, hey, maybe they're a big sports fan, or maybe they've got pictures of the golf course or art on their wall that you can connect with like you could in a normal interview. That's harder to do when you only see this screen, right? So I just be encouraging, say, try to find a way to create personal interactions, even though through it's a digital world. A simple thing like a handwritten note, or doing your research ahead of time to find a personal area to connect with, would be some things I'd recommend.
Yeah. I know you're active on LinkedIn. I see you on there frequently, and we engage from time to time. And so that's another area that if you're not using LinkedIn effectively, then you need to reach out to Teddy or to me. We're happy to try to help you with that. But that's been a great thing, I think, for you to get the word out and to brand you and to brand your organization. It really has.
Yeah, it's normally, there's one of the things we've learned talking about positive. I think small businesses have gotten innovative on the digital platform. It's caused me to try to do more on LinkedIn and digital presence and social networks to connect in different ways. But definitely recommend Teddy and Randy's help, because just please don't be the person that sends the invite that has nothing but tries to sell in the invite, right? Like, put in there a nice personal note that says, I see we're connected with Randy, or we have a mutual connection. I'd like to reach out. It can be bombarding to get those invites that aren't personalized with the message. So that's my LinkedIn tip of the day. But I love LinkedIn. I like liking things. I like being able to comment and engage and finding new people, but try to find that connection before you just blindly hit the connect button.
Hey, we've got another 5 minutes or so before I'm going to ask you to kind of summarize your what you wanted to share with folks today. And you mentioned you had a little kind of behind the scenes tidbit there that you shared. I don't know whether you have any more in your tool chest over there that you can share, but for those that have stuck with us, any little behind the scenes tidbits that you can share that might be kind of cool. Anything going on?
Some of it I can't share all the way. I would love to. I would just say this, that we have 3 times the amount of active projects looking in our community than we normally do. And that is telling us that our market is ready for some growth. We're seeing it across the region. And what I'm excited to say is that some of that is office, some of that is distribution, and some of that is manufacturing. Normally, we don't have a lot of office projects, especially in this kind of environment. So we're excited to see some interest in office. I think that our brand as a region, our brand as Winston-Salem, is getting out in the country, and we're starting to get some traction. And I think we should have some wins announced, hopefully here in the next few months. So for those job seekers that are out there, stay up to date on the news. I'm a big fan of Google Alerts. You can create Google Alerts for announcements, so you can, you don't have to go get the paper every day. You can check out and find that and have it brought to you by setting alerts. So I would say there's some exciting things there, some exciting expansions, small businesses looking to reopen soon. Really excited to see some of the opportunities that our minor league baseball teams, our music venues are going to come out with this spring and summer, getting to see some of their planning. I think we're going to come back to life here pretty quick, and really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I've been working on my shoulder. So if the dash needs
put it down, Randy.
Needs a 60-year-old lefty out of the bullpen, let them know, Mark, if you've got some ties, just let them know that I'm only a phone call away. So just saying that,
Minor league baseball, they're the best at some crazy promotions. So maybe we could come up with something.
I'm going to throw out one of the opening pitches. I ponied up some money to do that. And, the old joke about the old man that goes there and tries to impress the manager by throwing a 60-mile-an-hour heater to the opening pitch, and then he throws his shoulder out. But very cool.
Hey, update.
What you got?
Some tips. So Joseph, buddy of mine in Charlotte, one of our sister cities, just shared, and I'll share it with everybody, cltta.com. It's called Wander Park. I'll drop that out publicly. If anybody on here is, in the technology world, There's a lot going on in Winston. There's also a lot going on in Charlotte. And Joseph, a good friend of mine in Charlotte, working with the group, put together this portal for people to connect and get into conversations. So again, if you're in technology, check it out. It's at least worth visiting. Joseph, thank you for sharing that. Back to you, Randy.
Yep. All right, Mark, wanted to ask you this, and then after that, we'll do the summary, unless we can think of something else we wanted to throw in there. And
Right.
that is this: you moved here with a 3-month-old and a wife, and you moved from South Carolina to Winston in what was pretty good economic times, 2017. So now you're 3 years into this thing. Looking back, things that exceeded your expectations, things that maybe were different from what you anticipated. Just kind of walk us through your mindset as you've gone through these last 3 years.
Yeah, great question. I mean, let's throw COVID out, right? Because that's just the outlier. So I may answer this without COVID lens on, because that could take up the whole conversation there. But we moved here the first week we were here. It was just snowing, and I was like, "Where are we? Why is it this cold?" And then it's leveled out a little bit, so that's been great. There's been a lot of positives. What I felt when we came on the interview process was a welcoming community, and it's been more welcoming than I thought. Part of that is the ability to connect with people in person, which helped go. And part of that is the nature of my job of meeting people. But what I thought was really stood out is people cared about knowing what my wife does and what's going on with our son. And it wasn't just a business relationship. People seem to really care and extend opportunities to get involved. One of the things I thought was going to happen, which wasn't the case, was, a lot of communities that have legacy companies like Reynolds and Haynes. I thought there was going to be a Mr. or Mrs. Reynolds or a Mr. or Mrs. Haynes that, kind of blessed everything in the community. And that isn't the case. It's kind of spread out amongst different community leaders. So I thought that was really interesting. We have some areas to work on. We have some equity issues to work on. We have some economic mobility opportunities to grow. When people look at Winston-Salem with the hyphen in the middle, I was thinking about old Winston, old Salem, and Winston, and that being like the merger of the two communities. I think we have some room to grow in Winston, and that dash, that hyphen kind of separating us a part of our communities, that I want to help try to blend that together and join it. And so hyphens are meant to join words, not separate them in the English language. So we want to get back to that. We want to get back to bringing our community together, and that's what we focus on a lot. Obviously we've had a lot happen. The BB&T announcement and Truist moving, that was obviously unexpected. But the part that is positive on that is I've also seen our incubators, our ecosystem for startups being a lot stronger than I thought at first. And so I think most importantly, we've grown in telling our story and connecting people and getting to know each other in the community that develops those relationships that results in positive outcomes. And I'm excited about where we are. Our community's weathered a lot, but I love just saying this. So we're just getting started. I think it's a new chapter in Winston-Salem, and I'm incredibly excited about what's next.
Yeah, and we've moved from textile, tobacco, furniture, manufacturing. We've pivoted a lot of bioscience stuff. In fact, later today, you're visiting a pretty cool place. If you care to share, I don't know, but it's high-end stuff that I never studied in school. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, right after this, getting to tour the Center for Regenerative Medicine, the Wake Forest Center for Regenerative Medicine. Going to go put on the lab coat, the goggles, the gloves, the mask. A very COVID-safe tour. But biotech and bio life sciences are a huge part of our community. Healthcare is the largest industry for our community, with over 30% of employed in the healthcare services. So I'm excited to see what's going on in the labs. I feel like I'm going into science class. I'm going to understand basically none of it, to be honest with you, but it's going to be pretty exciting to see. That's something about Winston-Salem is there's a big arts community. There's a big science community. We have a college town feel. It's just 5 different colleges that are all together in it. So there's a lot of uniqueness about our community. We talked about Charlotte, Teddy, you mentioned. A lot of times people think we compete all the time. I love to think we complement. We really, it's great to have Raleigh and Charlotte and Chapel Hill and Durham all in this area. It's really exciting. There's some big advantages, and we're all really close to each other, a lot closer than people think.
Interesting. Well,
When you go to the lab, Mark, don't touch the beakers or the Bunsen burners.
All right. I'm not sure. I know what burner is, so I think I figured out at least part of it. My hands will be in my pockets. I can guarantee you that.
yeah, if it's going to regenerate stuff, can you see what they might be able to do about this? Maybe.
Yeah, I'll ask. I'll also make sure they can work on shoulders after you throw your arm out at the baseball game.
Oh, I always wondered if they can regenerate hair, man. That would be good. Hey, Mark, we've got a few minutes left. If you would, you did a lot of talking today about a lot of topics. If you had a couple minutes to kind of summarize business, economy, COVID, whatever, just kind of capsulize that, if you would, please.
Yeah, first off, I'd like to just kind of address your audience here a little bit is pat yourself on the back. This has been a hard time, and it's been a hard time for everybody, whether you've had gainful employment the whole time or not. It's tough. It's mentally challenging. It affects us in so many ways. You know, I would just say, give yourself some grace and know that we're all working through this and you're not by yourself. So reach out for help, advice. We're all here to support each other. So first and foremost, just want to say that Winston-Salem, we're on the rise. We're going to rebound out of this faster than other cities our size across the country. And that's going to happen. And we're going to be in a situation where we're going to be growing and our community is ready for that. We have challenges. Office space is a challenge, but we have other areas, our industrial sector, our manufacturing sector really growing. Forsyth Tech doing an amazing job. What Goodwill's doing with the career development, professional services. I love the welding program. That's going to be an area that I would say if you're interested in finding a new skill, I would look into welding. Great career opportunity, work with your hands, fulfilling work. So I would just say in kind of summary that it's a good time to be in the region. If you have the opportunity to work in different places, there are a lot of great places across this country, but I'm just going to say it. I know I'm supposed to say it, but I also believe it. And that's this region that we're in, the Carolina core, we're going to come out of this stronger, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for growth and employment opportunities here. Because we're also hoping that when we talk about creating jobs, that's personal to us, but we want to help create careers because we want to have opportunities for growth. So I'm just blessed and happy to be here, and we love it. And I'm especially thankful, Teddy, you and Randy, for having me and connecting with this great audience, and look forward to connecting on LinkedIn with everybody.
Yeah, if they want to reach out to you, then they can do that through LinkedIn or through email and so forth. So all good. Teddy, I have a short story.
Here, I'll take your short story and then I'll do mine. You get prepared for the ending.
Okay. All right. Well, first off, Mark, thanks. And your predecessor, Gail Anderson, again, somebody who was very instrumental in helping me get acclimated here. I moved here from Ohio, not knowing a soul. I came down here for work and had never been to Winston until my interview. Didn't know anybody and was dropped in Winston in a sales role where I didn't know a soul. So good luck with that. But I'll tell you what, the chamber was huge, instrumental, whether it was being in referral groups, whether it was meeting with Gail, meeting with some of her team. They personally welcomed me with open arms, and going to a lot of the chamber events gave me a chance to interact with a lot of the business people in the area. And yeah, there's Kiwanis Club and other organizations out there that I interacted with, but I've got to give kudos to the chamber. Of course, that was what it was called back then, but they were huge, man. And I've told many of our job hunter folks, if you're interested in moving to another city, one of the first calls you need to make in that city is to the chamber or whatever entity it's called in that city, because they have their ear to the ground on companies that do the kind of work that you might like to do. And they want to encourage workers to come to their area, because again, without workers, you don't have companies. So again, if you're watching, reach out to the folks at, Greater Winston-Salem or with whatever city you're in. Their heart's in the right place. They've got the knowledge and the ability to help. And while you may not be able to walk into their office and shake their hand, you can still engage with them, and just know that they're all, I'm going to speak for them, but that they're all ready, willing, and able to help wherever they can. So thanks again, Mark. Thank you very much. And Teddy, what you got?
All right. So look, I echo what Randy says. My primary business is all about helping business professionals get into conversations. That's what it's all about. I started years ago with this title of networking strategist. And that's all about helping people get into conversations. That applies to all of us in all areas of life. So if you're in career search or you have your own business, it's all about finding people to have conversations with. And some of the best people that you want to connect with are people who are involved with paying attention to what's going on in our communities, pay attention to what's going on in our cities. So I really do encourage, I'm echoing what Randy says, pay attention to Greater Winston-Salem, Maine. Pay attention to your local chamber. Pay attention to the people who are involved in economic development, workforce development, and the changes that are going on in our communities. Because that's how you're going to uncover the opportunities that nobody else is talking about yet. Because all the great jobs, Randy will echo this, are not listed on Monster Career Builder, Ladder, or Indeed. They're through the people in business who are making things happen, sometimes referred to as the movers and shakers. They know the next set of resources a company needs. So pay attention to what's going on in Greater Winston-Salem, Maine, in your local town, your local community business organizations, chamber, or whatever that is, because that's where you're going to uncover the greatest opportunities. So Mark, again, thanks a lot for coming. When you walk down the hall later today, you'll let people like Barbette and Jill and others know that Teddy said hi, because I spent many a year before I left Winston. I live right outside of Winston, hanging out with your people. They're good people. Yeah. So Randy, you want to introduce our next folks?
I certainly can. Abby Donnelly.
You got that in front of you? You know who they are.
I just know it off the top because I'm me, Teddy. I've got it.
Smarter than the average bear.
Wait, hang on. Whoa, just a second. Mark, this is a weekly ritual. This is how I track stuff. So
I love it. Thanks guys for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Next time we're going to have Abby Donnelly on next Wednesday. Abby is with Leadership Legacy Group. And I've known of Abby for probably close to 20 years now, since I moved here, actually. And Abby is into a lot of executive coaching, training, succession planning, just a whole myriad of things. And I approached her a few weeks back and I said, look, our audience, they're professionals. Many are in a job hunt. How can we as job seekers exude that executive presence when we go about the interview process? What is it we can say? How do we act? What do we do? That kind of a thing to exude the executive presence, not just in the job search, but through business in general. You may even want to call it branding, personal branding. So we're going to tackle that topic in a lot of detail with Abby Donnelly next week. So if you have the ability to join us, please do. You can always watch it after the fact, but you won't be able to interject questions unless you're watching it live. And also, if you have topics or maybe speakers that you think would be of interest or value that could add value to our audience, we want to hear about that. And Teddy, one last thing, and that's our anniversary show.
Yeah, man, that's coming together.
Wait a minute. Let me check my wall calendar, Teddy.
Yeah. That's April 7th, dude.
April 7th. We've been at this thing for about a year, Mark. We started back in early April of last year. And so we thought, well, we'll get together and we'll invite all of our prior guests.
Special guests.
And we'll try to pick 10 of them from differing industries or different topics and have them talk a little bit about what they do and really just kind of a reunion show, if you will. So it's going to be fun. We'll have that coming up. But yeah, we're always looking for folks to help us with our show. So Mark, if you know of anybody as well, looking forward to any input you might have. Teddy, we've got just a moment or two left. I'm out of in wisdom at this point. I'm done.
We've accomplished our goals. We really did. So I hope everybody got value from it. Yep. Mark, again, thanks for showing up. Randy, I'm done. It's time for me to go get a biscuit. So
something else that starts with a B.
Mark, you got something?
I got one thing.
Yeah.
We're hiring at Greater Winston-Salem Inc. So check out winstonsalem.com. We got an open position. So I saved the nugget to all those that stayed on and watched the whole time. To drop a little nugget, we just posted a job yesterday, a business services manager, helping us with connecting with our businesses and our members and some of our financial support as well. So winstonsalem.com, we've got a job opportunity on our site right now. So I wanted to save a nugget for the end, guys. So
That's
thanks.
good.
Perfect.
Are
Thanks.
you also hiring live Zoom radio DJs?
We could talk about it only if you're a cat. Only
In
if
the-
you're a cat.
If it's in the
Good
budget.
luck.
Sorry about, yeah, sorry. Is it? Well, good deal. And tell them that if you apply, tell them that Randy and Teddy sent you. And,
Yeah,
and
please
I'm
do.
sure that'll get you in the door.
That's that
All right.
personal touch we're talking about. Thank you, guys.
Take care,
Bye,
Mark. Have a
see
good
y'all
day.
later.
Thank you,
Bye.
Teddy. Bye now.